Hello, I'm the Dark Master. In today's video, we shall be discussing another deeply underappreciated and even reviled to a certain extent part of Mississippi's wildlife. Ticks. Yes, really. While often thought of as nothing more than a nuisance that targets people for their blood, spreads diseases, and has no real role in the ecosystem. And while yes, they do spread diseases like Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and various other more obscure ones, this is not intentional. Ticks do not intentionally target people, but rather will, for the most part, attach themselves to any large animal they come across. Also, not all species have even been found on people, and not all tick individuals will carry diseases. Plus, they do have some ecological roles. They directly serve as food for a number of birds, reptiles, amphibians, and other arthropods and other invertebrates. Their indirect impacts include that they, alongside predators as parasites, will weed out weak individuals and keep populations healthy. Due to this negative life they often get, I figured why not try and offer a more positive discussion of their diversity, for which there is a surprisingly large amount of. 19 species, in fact, are found historically here. But before we get to that, let us answer the question you might have. What exactly is a tick, and where they fit in the tree of life? Now, if you've watched my videos on the scorpions and harvestmen of Mississippi, which I recommend you do if you're interested in these sorts of animals, this segment might be a little familiar if you've watched those before, but to keep it brief, all animals more derived than a jellyfish are divided into two groups based on their embryological development. Duratostomes develop an anus first. These include animals like echinoderms such as starfish and vertebrates like you and me. Relevant for the rest of this video, though, are the protostomes, who developed their mouth first. The protostomes are divided into two subdivisions. First are the Spiralia, which includes animals like mollusks, annelid worms, and many others that are united by a unique larval form. More relevant for this video are the Ecdysozoa, which are united by the presence of ecdysis, or the molting of a cuticle. It is divided into two groups. First are the Scelidophora, which includes the Priapulids, better known as penis worms, and their relatives. The second group, the Cryptovermes, are a bit contentious if they're really a group, but contain two subdivisions. There is the Nematoidea, which includes nematodes and the very similar related Nematomorpha, also known as the horsehair worms, and the second, the Panarthropoda, which are distinguished by a segmented body and set of paired appendages. Moving past the very diverse and interesting yet extinct polyphyletic group, the Lobopodia, it consists of three groups. First of the Panarthropoda are the Tardigrada, better known as water bears. Second are the mucus-spitting predatory Onychophorans, more often called velvet worms. Lastly, and relevant for the rest of the video, are the arthropods, distinguished from their cousins by a mineralized exoskeleton and jointed legs. The arthropods are extremely diverse and are divided into several subphylum. In addition to several basal forms not relevant for this video, first are the Arthropoda, which are most famous for their highly diverse trilobites, for which I've made an entire whole video series on this sadly entirely extinct group, if you'd like to learn more about them. Back on topic, the remaining living arthropods are divided into two groups. First are the Mandibulata, distinguished by the presence of, mandibles, and are themselves divided into two groups. First are the Myriapoda, which includes the likes of centipedes, millipedes, and their more obscure relatives like the Pauropoda and Symphylans. The other group are the Pancrustacea, which include shrimps, lobsters, crabs, and insects. Yes, really, insects are a highly derived group of crustaceans in the subcategory Hexapoda. Last of the arthropod subcategories are the Silicerata, named for the presence of silicerae instead of mandibles. They are divided into several groups. First are a few basal families and the utterly bizarre pycnogonids, often called sea spiders, even though they're not spiders. More relevant to the video are the Ixodidae, which, aside from the basal family, the Olfactoridae, are consisting of the Prosomopoda, distinguished from earlier forms by the lack of exopods on the second and fifth appendages. They are divided into two groups: the Xiphoshura, which contains the horseshoe crabs and their relatives, and more relevant to us, the Planeturga, which are distinguished by a carapace with reduced genal spines and a pistosoma with tergates broadest at the third and ninth segment, a set of opisthomal segments with reduced appendages, and a microtergite. The Planeturga are divided into several basal forms, and, relevant for us, the Decatriata, distinguished from the others by an opistosoma with 13 segments and fused plate-like appendages on their first opistosomal segment. Though admittedly later forms did secondarily lose some of these traits, they are divided into two major groups. First are the Chasmataspida, an order of cool swimming guys that sadly died out in the Middle Devonian, and the Sclerophorata. This group itself is divided into two further subdivisions. The Eurypteridae, a group of large animals often called sea scorpions, that were apex predators during the early Paleozoic, but declined later on. That name is a bit of a misnomer, though. For one, they had freshwater, brackish, and even semi-aquatic forms, not just ones found in the sea. And two, they are not ancestral to or any more related to scorpions than they are to any other arachnids, which are their sister group, the class Arachnida. Yes, finally, we've reached the end stretch. However, it is here that we get into a bit of a trip up. You see, historically, mites, and the subject of this video, ticks, were once placed into the subclass Acari, based on their small size and similar morphology, being divided into two superorders: the Acariforms, also called the Actinotrinchidae, and true mites, which includes all sorts of mites like velvet mites, spider mites, chiggers, gall mites, and many, many more, with over 32,000 scientifically described species. The second are the parasitiforms, with only 12,000 species scientifically described. They are the smaller of the two. However, genetic studies have found this grouping to be polyphyletic, with the Acariforms potentially being more related to solifuges, while the parasitiforms are found to be somewhere else. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, plus there's also been some counterclaims that they actually do form a natural group. This whole mite-tick situation is a mess due to their very poor fossil record, due to their small, non-mineralized bodies, and the sheer ancientness of these divisions that date back to the Devonian, potentially. But for now, let us focus on the parasitiforms. The most basal of this clade are the Opelioacaridae, a small order of often called harvest mites due to their long legs, despite being neither harvestmen nor true mites. Fairly large, with the ancestral 6 eyes, they are low in diversity, with only 52 described species or so. Next, we see the Mesostigmata, the most diverse group of parasitiforms, with around 8,000 species that live in freshwater, leaf litter, and soil as parasites and predators. Third is the Holothuridae, a small group with around 28 species scientifically described that look a lot like ticks, but are scavengers that feed on dead invertebrates. They're endemic to the southern hemisphere in what is now Australia, India, New Guinea, and South America, which were all once part of Gondwana. With their sister group, however, the Ixodidae, we finally come to the subject of this video, the ticks, the diversity of which we shall talk about now alongside their general anatomy. Alright, so in terms of anatomy, it can be a bit hard to generalize as there's a deep difference between the two major groups, which we'll talk about later, but as a whole, You can generalize them with their body consisting of two parts: the gnathosoma, i.e., the head, which contains the mouths of ticks, and the idiosoma, aka the body, which, interestingly, in nymph ticks, only has three pairs of legs. By the way, baby ticks are often called nymphs or seed ticks. They only grow their fourth pair after their first instar. Going on to their diversity, it is noticeable that they are a lot less diverse than some of the other clades I've discussed in terms of major subdivisions. The most basal and only family of ticks not found in Mississippi are the Nuttalliellidae, which contains only one living species, Nuttalliella arenocurna. The unusual name, in fact, being an homage to British-American parasitologist George Henry Fafnir Nuttall, who made huge contributions to the study of arthropod disease carriers. These are a living fossil found in the rural areas of Tanzania, South Africa, and Namibia, with a unique combination of traits like fenestrated plates. This species is but the last remnant of a once far more diverse group, with 5 other species known from this genus, as well as a whole other related family, the Dinocrotonidae, which some may say is actually part of the same family, but that's a little contentious. Both of which are known from the Burmese amber, which, despite being the only significant resource for ticks and many other arthropod groups, is very controversial, but I made a whole video documentary on that if you'd like to learn more about that subject. It seems, however, that this set of ticks' great success in the Mesozoic was doomed, for they were specialists of non-avian dinosaurs, and when they passed away, so did these guys in the end Cretaceous mass extinction event. Nuttallia only survived due to feeding on lizards and other small animals, and it seems likely that they didn't diversify due to the presence of other tick groups. With the other lineage, we find 3 families. First, there was the Chimaeridae, which is a monotypic family that has a single species that bears a combination of traits like the mouthparts of the Ixodidae, more well known as hard ticks or scale ticks, and the soft body of the Argasidae, also known as the soft ticks. And with that, let us start discussing the 2 families actually found in Mississippi, starting with the less diverse of the 2, the Argasidae, aka the soft ticks. The Argasids, also known as the soft ticks, are distinguished by the lack of a hard scutum, which is a hardened region seen in their more famous relatives that we'll talk about in a bit. Despite this seeming leathery softness, they are as a whole more resilient to desiccation than hard ticks are. Their mouth parts are also generally not visible when viewed from above, and are adapted to feeding rapidly for short periods of time, then dropping off to scuttle away. They have a longer developmental period, with numerous instars before reaching adulthood. But also, unlike their hard cousins, they can lay eggs several times, albeit in smaller batches. In terms of diversity, both the Mississippi and worldwide, they are the smaller of the 2, with around 200 species and 6 genera worldwide, 3 of which are historically found in the state. First is the bat tick, Ornithodorus kelleyi, named in honor of a man named Thomas F. Kelly Jr., who seems to have not much else to his name outside of finding the type specimen of the species while working at UC Berkeley in 1941. True to its name, it is often found in association of caves and other areas bats live in, and is found often attached to them. It doesn't target people, though it will bite if handled, allegedly. Then again, most people don't handle these things, but it has only been reported a single time in Tishomingo County, but according to most experts, is believed to likely be anywhere with a bat population, and can be distinguished from the other 2 soft tick species found in the state by the lack of spines. They reach around 1/7 to 3/8 of an inch long. The fowl tick, or poultry tick, Argus persicus, is true to its name, native to Persia and the surrounding regions of Asia and the Middle East. Also, as the name suggests, it feeds primarily on domestic birds like geese, ducks, turkeys, and chicken, and has spread by them to the rest of the world. While it can occasionally bite farm workers, its greatest impact is on chickens, causing many to die, but has declined as modern poultry mass farming has eliminated a lot of its easy meals by removing the hiding places they often sleep in during the day between nightly feedings. It is only known from Oktibbeha County, and it reaches about 0.39 inches long. The third and last species of soft ticks is the spinose ear tick, or Obitus magnemi. Native to the western U.S., it has spread around the world, including the eastern United States, thanks to cattle. They often occur in the inner ear of horses, cattle, dogs, goats, and sadly sheep. Only the larvae nymphs actually feed on blood, however, while adults live nearby in hidden areas, laying eggs for about 6 months, and they're able to absorb water from the atmosphere while not eating. They are only reported from Warren County and reach 0.31 inches in length and are probably elsewhere. With that, we've come to the end of the soft ticks. Now let us get hard with the Ixodidae, the hard ticks, on this final chapter of the video. The Ixodidae, or hard ticks, are also called for their presence of a scoot near the head. They use their head's mouth parts to stick on for much longer periods of time than soft ticks do, swelling by an enormous amount. They display, unlike their cousins, sexual dimorphism and only lay eggs once before death. They are far more diverse than them, though, with around 771 species divided among 14 genera, of which 16 species and 6 to 5 genera show up in Mississippi. Let us start with the smallest of these genera, then move up. First, there is the brown dog tick, Rhipicephalus sanguinis, also called the kennel tick or pan-tropical dog tick, reaching about 0.12 inches long and is dark brown in coloration. It has a cosmopolitan distribution, and while they will bite humans, mostly target dogs way more. Then we got the rabbit tick, also known as Hemiphilaspis lepisoroprostris, often called the rabbit tick or grouse tick. It is known all over Mississippi and is a pale brownish color without prominent markings. It only reaches about 0.039 inches in length, and true to the name, they only really feed on rabbits and the occasional ground bird. The last of the single species genera is a bit controversial, as some consider the genus Buphilus the same as Rhipicephalus. I've decided to play it safe and mention both. This animal, often called the cattle tick, Buphilus annulatus or Rhipicephalus annulatus, is also called the North American cattle tick and Texas fever tick, a common animal that is cosmopolitan in the warmer regions of the world. It is a common pest among cattle, horses, and such. It used to be very common in the southern U.S., but in Mississippi it is only known from Franklin County and thought to be eradicated. But in the case of invertebrates, they're very resilient to that, so I wouldn't be shocked if it's still lurking somewhere, maybe in some odd corner of some old farm. The next genus has 2 species. First is the winter tick, Dermacentor albipictus. It's very common in the northern U.S., but it's very irregular in its distribution in Mississippi. It reaches up to 0.6 inches long, and they can come in a dark-colored and light-colored morphs that were once treated as separate species until genetic analysis revealed that they weren't. While they can bite people, they have a stronger preference for cervididio like white-tailed deer and moose. The second species is also the most infamous of those found in the state, the wood tick, Dermacinator variabilis, also known as the American dog tick, is one of the most significant spreaders of human disease among ticks in this area of the world. Native throughout the entire state, it can be identified by the light pale color seen on the back. Now we come to the genus Ambiolomna, the second largest, with a total of 4 species found in Mississippi. First is the Lone Star tick, Ambiolomna americanum, which is so named for the large singular star-like spot and is found in all of the state. Then there is the Gulf Coast tick, Ambula maculatum. True to its name, it's common in the southern third of the state near the Gulf Coast and has a very unique ornate set of markings. The third species in this genera are the Cayame tick, Amblioma cajunense. It is only known from some questionable records collected off turkeys in the Mississippi Delta, and is otherwise not very notable. Last and perhaps most notable of these is the gopher tortoise tick, Amblyomna tuberculatum. It is known to specialize on gopher tortoises and, true to its name, only found where they are known to live. Reports of this species come from Hancock, Jackson, and Harrison County, though I guess you could find it wherever any gopher tortoises are. And they are also the largest species of tick. When not engorged, they reach 1 inch in size, and when full, they reach the size of a large marble. With that, we reach the final genus of ticks, Ixodes, which contains the remaining 7 species. First is the bird tick, Ixodes grumens, which, true to its name, only feeds on birds, not people. These have been collected off such things as blackbirds, wrens, sparrows, jays, thrushes, waxwings, and robins. Only known from a few records due to its host preference, it's likely found statewide due to the nature of birds. Then there is the rotund tick, Ixodes kingi, which has little, if any, knowledge about it, except that it's not regularly found attacking people, with its preferred host being small carnivores like weasels, badgers, and domestic dogs. I personally think the name is a bit odd, as it's not particularly rotund than other ticks, but hey, I didn't come up with the name. The squirrel tick, Ixodes marxi, is a very pale-colored tick that is rather appropriately mostly found on squirrels as hosts, such as red squirrels, gray squirrels, flying squirrels, fox squirrels, as well as chipmunks, rabbits, and rarely raccoons. It has only been seen in Noxubee County, but is likely found statewide due to not being surveyed for. The raccoon tick, Ixodes texanus, is true to the name and most associated with raccoons, but has been found rarely on opossums, rabbits, and even rodents. It is believed to be found statewide by experts, but has only ever been recorded from Marshall County in Mississippi. The black-legged ticks, Ixodes scapularis, gets its name by its very prominently black-colored legs. They commonly feed on reptiles, while nymphs and livestock/deer as adults. Found across the state, though rare, around the northern border near Tennessee, and is unfortunately one of the largest spreaders of human diseases, specifically Lyme disease. So are the arguably most harmful of all the ticks we have here. The woodchuck tick, Ixodes cookae, is a small nondescript tick that's been reported from Clay County, but is likely found elsewhere due to a large number of medium-sized animals like dogs, skunks, weasels, and raccoons it uses as hosts. It can bite people, but it is rare. The last species of tick in Mississippi is the toothed tick, Ixodes dentatus, also called sometimes the rabbit tick, though that name is preferred for another species I discussed earlier, so I would avoid it if you want to maintain clarity. It is a notable parasite of rabbits and other small mammals like white-footed mice. It can spread Lyme disease, but it's not known to do so, and is, rather common throughout the state, though it's not reported very often. And with that, we come to an end of the ticks found in Mississippi. Hopefully, I've been able to inform you in an entertaining way about this perhaps not the most best of arthropods. While they're not my favorite, I do think they deserve a bit of love and appreciation, though let's be honest, I won't really get otherwise. Next time on these one-off nature videos, I shall be leaving Mississippi behind. Not because I'm abandoning it, far from it. In fact, I would love to do a lot of other groups. Sadly, all the other groups I would want to talk about are so diverse that a single video could simply not give them the respect they deserve. And as such, I cannot do until I finish my current video series and the one I promised after that. With that being said, next time we shall be discussing a bit more controversial of a topic. The most controversial bird of all time. As for what that is, well, you're just going to have to wait and see. If you liked the video, like it, but if you loved it, consider sharing it around and subscribing. It really does help us out, these smaller YouTubers like myself. Take care and have a wonderful day.